Here's something almost no doctor sits down and actually explains to you, and it might be the real reason your joints still ache even when you're doing everything you were told to do. More than 53 million American adults, that's over 1 in 5 of us, are currently living with some form of arthritis, according to the CDC. Most of them take their medication faithfully, follow every instruction, and still wake up with fingers that won't quite close or knees that complain on the first flight of stairs. That's because most treatments manage the pain signal, but they don't always touch the slow, quiet fire underneath it, the one doctors call chronic inflammation. And here's the part that genuinely surprises people. 5 ordinary beans, sold in nearly every grocery store in this country, are packed with compounds that American researchers have connected to calmer inflammation, stronger cartilage, and easier movement. We're not talking about anything exotic or expensive. Stick around, because the bean at the very end of this list might be the one your joints have been waiting for. Let's start with a bean that's been feeding people since before written history existed, and somehow still barely gets mentioned when arthritis comes up. Fava beans, also called broad beans, are loaded with plant protein, folate, manganese, and copper. And that copper matters a lot more than people realize, because your body uses it to build collagen, the very protein that keeps cartilage cushioned and flexible. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients found that fava bean protein actively boosted muscle protein synthesis in adults, both at rest and after exercise, which means it helps rebuild the muscle tissue that quietly protects your knees and hips from everyday wear and tear. For anyone managing arthritis, that muscle support translates directly into steadier joints and less strain during ordinary movement, like standing up from a chair or climbing stairs. Nutrition researchers have also flagged fava beans as a potential functional food for lowering inflammatory markers in the body, which is exactly the kind of everyday support arthritis sufferers are looking for. Aim for about half a cup to 1 cup cooked 3 times a week. For the best recipe, try a lemon herb fava mash. Soak 1 cup of dried fava beans overnight, boil for 45 minutes until soft, blanch them briefly, and slip off the tough outer skins, then mash with a tablespoon of olive oil, 1 minced garlic clove, and fresh lemon juice. Most people skip that skin removal step because it feels tedious, but leaving the skins on makes the beans bitter and much harder on digestion. Now, if fava beans surprised you, wait until you hear what's hiding inside one of the prettiest beans in the entire bean aisle. Cranberry beans, sometimes labeled borlotti beans, are speckled like a robin's egg, and underneath that beautiful shell sits an unusually high dose of copper, close to 1/3 of your daily requirement in a single serving, which your joints depend on to keep collagen and elastin strong and elastic. National Geographic's coverage of legume research highlights cranberry beans specifically for their rich supply of antioxidants and anti-inflammatory phytochemicals, the kind of compounds that help slow the oxidative damage arthritis quietly causes to joint tissue over time. Laboratory studies have gone even further, showing that borlotti bean extract reduced inflammatory cytokines and improved gut barrier function in animal models, a connection scientists believe matters for humans too, since gut health and systemic inflammation are becoming impossible to separate in current research. A reasonable serving is half a cup cooked 2 to 3 times a week. For the recipe, try a cranberry bean and roasted tomato skillet. Sauté 1 cup of cooked cranberry beans with half a cup of halved cherry tomatoes and a teaspoon of olive oil for about 8 minutes. Then finish with torn fresh basil. The mistake most home cooks make is boiling these beans too aggressively, which splits the skins and turns a creamy, satisfying bean into a mushy disappointment. From there, we move to a bean that doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves, mostly because people lump it in with every other lentil on the shelf without realizing it's actually in a different league. French green lentils, often sold as puy lentils in American stores, carry the highest total polyphenol content of any common legume, according to research reviewed by Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Those polyphenols, particularly a group called proanthocyanidins, are currently being studied for their role in reducing the oxidative stress that contributes to cartilage breakdown in arthritic joints. Harvard's own nutrition researchers point out that regular lentil consumption is tied to better long-term cardiovascular and metabolic health, and that matters for arthritis more than people expect, because healthy blood flow is what carries oxygen and repair nutrients directly to inflamed joint tissue. Try to work in half a cup cooked 3 to 4 times weekly. The best way to enjoy them is a French lentil and spinach bowl. Simmer 1 cup of lentils in 2 cups of low-sodium broth for about 25 minutes, then stir in a cup of fresh spinach with a teaspoon of olive oil until it wilts down. The most common mistake is walking away from the pot too long, since French green lentils are prized for holding their shape, so check them around the 20-minute mark instead of letting them go soft and mushy. Speaking of beans, people overlook without a second thought. Let's talk about the one that's probably been sitting in your grandmother's pantry your entire life. Yellow split peas are packed with fiber, somewhere around 13 grams in every cooked cup, along with a solid dose of potassium, folate, and iron that most people simply aren't getting enough of. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that yellow split peas showed real anti-inflammatory and antioxidant activity, supporting healthier immune and cellular function throughout the body. Here's why that matters specifically for arthritis. Because their fiber slows digestion and prevents blood sugar from spiking, split peas help avoid the glucose swings that researchers increasingly link to flare-ups in inflammatory activity, meaning steadier blood sugar may genuinely translate into calmer, less reactive joints. The USDA recommends adults work toward about 1.5 cups of pulses every week, and split peas make that goal easy to hit. For the recipe, a classic split pea and carrot soup works beautifully. Simmer 1 cup of split peas with 2 cups of broth, half a cup of diced carrot, and half a teaspoon of garlic powder for 30 minutes. The mistake almost everyone makes is salting the pot too early, which toughens the peas and stretches your cooking time far longer than it needs to be. And finally, we land on a bean that's been simmering in kitchens from the Bronx to San Juan for generations, quietly doing more for American joints than most people ever give it credit for. Pink beans, widely known as habichuelas rosadas, deliver around 15 grams of protein and 9 grams of fiber in every cooked cup, along with folate, manganese, and phosphorus that support bone strength around the joint itself. The American Heart Association actually features pink beans in its own recipe collection, praising them as a low-fat, nutrient-dense, budget-friendly protein that fits naturally into a heart-healthy American kitchen. Their antioxidant profile, including flavonoids and anthocyanins, has been linked in nutrition research to lower oxidative stress, which for arthritis sufferers means less of the cellular damage that speeds up joint deterioration over the years. A sensible amount is half a cup to 1 cup cooked 2 to 3 times weekly. The best way to prepare them is the traditional habichuelas rosadas simmered with sofrito. Cook soaked pink beans for about 90 minutes until fully tender, then stir in a light tomato and garlic sofrito and let it simmer for 20 more minutes. The most frequent mistake is reaching for canned beans loaded with sodium and skipping the rinse, which quietly cancels out the potassium's ability to ease the fluid retention around swollen, arthritic joints. So there you have it, 5 beans that are probably sitting somewhere in your kitchen or your local grocery store right now, each one backed by research out of Harvard, the American Heart Association, and peer-reviewed nutrition journals right here in the United States. If one of these caught you completely off guard, tell us which one in the comments below, because we genuinely read every single one of them. Share this with somebody who's tired of waking up stiff and wondering if it's just going to keep getting worse. And if you want more honest, research-backed ways to protect your joints naturally, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what we're covering next. Your mobility is worth fighting for. We'll see you in the next one.